Hello amigos y amigas, you're listening to the English Made Simple show. This is episode number 290, number 290, número 290. Welcome back, amigos y amigas. So welcome back. This is your host, Milena speaking. You're tuning in to the English Made Simple show. You can learn more about the EMS show and what it is all about when you visit englishmadesimple.net. If you want to listen to the podcast straight from the website, simply type in englishmadesimple.net/podcast. And while you're there, you can find a huge repertoire of the EMS episodes as well as useful resources to help you accelerate your English learning. Thank you everyone for joining me today. Thanks everybody for joining me in today's episode. In case you're wondering where I've been, I've taken a short holiday break from recording just to spend time with family. I had family visiting me from Melbourne. If you've been following current events about the coronavirus and lockdowns in Australia, no doubt you heard about the lockdowns in Australia. You'll know we've had some really tough restrictions here. The borders were closed and people from different cities couldn't visit one another. We were not allowed to travel nationally or interstate or internationally for almost 2 years. Well, the last 12 months were especially hard. And if you did have to travel, then you had to have a special permission to travel interstate. It kind of reminded me of the times when I had to apply for a visa to travel to Australia. But this time we had to travel interstate just to another city inside Australia. Crazy, isn't it? I'm sure there are worse things happening in the world right now than me complaining about borders being closed in Australia. I digress. Back to today's episode, amigos y amigas. I hope you enjoyed my episode, last episode on how I lost 10 kilos by listening to Metallica. It was about a month ago when I published that episode, and I'm sad to report that I have now found those 10 kilos. Lost and found. Okay. Today's episode is mostly about the listener survey and the results from that survey that some of you did earlier this year. I don't know if you remember earlier this year, I was asking you to complete a listener survey. It was really, really short. But before I share the results of the survey with you, I would just like to say hello, send greeting to a couple of listeners who had the time to reach out to me on Instagram. So I'd like to send a greeting to Danny Santos from Brazil, who sent me a message on Instagram. He says his favorite episode so far was about goal setting, episode 287. Danny listens to the EMS show on his way to the gym. Awesome. Are you listening to the episode right now, Danny? Are you going to the gym? Good on you, mate. And another person I'd like to send a greeting to is Farid Tapia from Colombia. Well, he doesn't live in Colombia. He lives in Australia, in Hobart, Tasmania. Beautiful place in Australia. That's what I heard, because I haven't been there yet. And Farid has twins. In Spanish, it's mellizos. Twins or non-identical twins in English. So Farid would like to know what's it like learning English as a twin, because I am a twin myself. I still communicate with my twin sister. She lives in Melbourne. She was visiting me just before, and I communicate with her in both English and Serbian. We mix. It's kind of a special language. We mix both languages. So that could be a great episode for me to do where I can bring my twin sister on the show, and we can maybe share some tips. Thanks for the idea, Farid. Thank you both, Danny and Farid, for taking the time to send me a message on Insta. I do check my Instagram, guys. I'm just not posting every day. Radio, let's get back to today's episode. So today, as I mentioned before, I'll share the results with you of the listener survey that I ran earlier this year. And I'd also like to say thank you to those who took the time to complete the survey. I really appreciate your time, amigos. So in the survey, I had 7 questions, easy peasy, 7 questions. That was a very quick survey to do. And those questions were to do with what your number one problem is with English right now, how you would like to learn English, and whether you've done an online course before, and so on. So I'll recap those questions with you soon. But that was the idea of that survey. And now let's dive into the juicy stuff, which is your answers. First off, I love your answers. Thank you again for doing this quick survey for me, amigos. It's definitely helpful to me to know more about you, to learn about your situation, and I promise it will be helpful to you as I'm going to use your answers to create something new for you. So, I'm going to share now the summary of this survey with you. So, I'm pretty sure people who are listening are curious to know the outcome of this survey. So, the question number 1 was, what's your number 1 problem with English right now? And you had options to select, I think, four options there. And the majority of people have selected option about speaking. So speaking was your number 1 problem right now. So you are unable to communicate clearly in English. 50% of respondents said they were not able to communicate clearly in English. And the second biggest response was listening, was to do with listening. I'm unable to understand native speakers. That's what people said as their number 1 problem. How do you like to learn English? That was question number 2. The majority of people said they prefer to learn English via an online course. 37% of people said an online course because they like to learn at their own pace, following some video instructions. And the next answer after that was the majority said together with the e-teacher online. They like that personal attention and feedback. So that's good to know. And question number 3 was, why do you need to learn English right now? 67% of people said they needed English for work. So you live in your country, you don't live in an English-speaking country. You work with foreigners, so you work with people that you need to communicate in English on an almost daily basis. So 67% of people said they need it for work. So that's good to know, very helpful. The next question was interesting. Have you done an online course before to improve your English? 60% of respondents said no, they haven't done an online course to try to improve their English. Great. Now, if there was an online course right now that could help you, what would it be about? So I had about 30 answers to these questions. So I'm not going to read 30 answers to you, but what I'm going to tell you is the majority of people said they wanted to learn how to communicate with clients in English. Everything was to do with work environment, how to use English in a working environment, how to master listening skills when you don't have an opportunity to visit foreign countries or to meet with foreign English speakers. So yes, I understand how that could be difficult. So yeah, it was very, very insightful to read your answers. Really enjoyed that. The last 2 questions, I think I've got 2 questions, so I'd like to share some results with you. So question number 6 was, to practice your speaking, in order to practice your English speaking, would you want to have a group of people, let's say 3 or 4 people you practice with together online? Or would you like to do it one-on-one with a teacher, or practice by yourself with some feedback from a teacher so you can practice at home? Well, 48%, the majority, said they would prefer to learn in a group. So maybe with 3 or 4 people to practice speaking together online. So that's very interesting to know. And the last question was, how much time can you spend on doing exercises to help you with English? Can you spend 1 hour a day, more than an hour, or an hour a week? Well, the majority of people said 1 hour a day they can dedicate to English. So that was about 50% of people that responded to the survey. Amazing. So that's the end of the survey results, amigos y amigas. I really enjoyed reading your answers. Thank you again for doing this survey. For those of you who missed out, you'll be glad to know that I will be extending the survey submissions until the end of month of May. So if you haven't done the survey earlier in the year, I'd appreciate it if you can maybe jump on the survey today, maybe englishmadesimple.net/survey, and you can do a quick survey, answer 7 questions, which will be really helpful to me to prepare something for you guys. The more answers I get to the survey, the better it is for me to nut out the details of my next course, and your answers will be helpful. That's it for today, amigos y amigas. See you next week. Thanks for listening, and thanks for tuning in to today's episode. You're always welcome to visit EnglishMadeSimple.net/podcast to continue listening to the rest of the episodes. Don't forget to do the listener survey for me. The link to the survey is inside the episode description. EnglishMadeSimple.net/survey. I'm extending the surveys until end of May, month of May. It's been a pleasure. I hope you've learned something new today. If something wasn't clear, be sure to send me an email or send me a message on Facebook and Instagram. You've been jamming with Milena from English Made Simple. Until next time, hasta la próxima!